The 30th of January 1933, Germany. Adolf Hitler, the leader of the Nazi Party, is appointed Chancellor of Germany and aims to lead the German master race to victory in the racial struggle against those deemed as inferior peoples, especially the Jews. In shaping and implementing many Nazi policies, the German medical profession plays a central role, and many doctors and nurses become involved in crimes of the regime. While some German physicians welcome the Nazi regime because it supports their beliefs about racial hygiene, others join to take advantage of opportunities to advance their careers. Between 1933 and 1945, roughly half of all German doctors become members of the Nazi Party and its organizations. One such doctor is a man who personally conducted experiments on Sachsenhausen concentration camp prisoners, treating them worse than animals. His name is Joachim Mrugowsky. Joachim Mrugowsky was born on the 15th of August 1905 in Rathenow, then part of the German Empire. His family was of Polish origin, and his father was a medical doctor killed in September 1914 during the First World War. After finishing high school in 1923, Joachim completed a banking apprenticeship. In 1925, Mrugowsky began his studies in natural sciences and medicine at the University of Halle. He specialized in botany and earned his doctorate in natural sciences in 1930. The following year, he passed the state medical examination and obtained his medical doctorate. During his time at the University of Halle, Mrugowsky was actively involved in student organizations, and he acted as the university group leader of the National Socialist German Students' League from 1930 to 1931. In this role, he led the first actions against the Protestant theologian Gunther Denn, who accepted a teaching position at the University of Halle. Mrugowsky and other students distributed leaflets against Denn, which also stated, "Pastor Denn wants to educate German children to be the most blatant and cowardly pacifists. Do we want to see such a man receive a professorship at our university? We want honest German men as professors at our universities." Though the faculty promised to defend Den against any student attacks, when Den wanted to start his lectures, there were disruptions and violent clashes between students and police. Den was eventually given a year's leave to calm the situation. Adolf Hitler and his Nazi Party came into power in January 1933, and shortly after, while on vacation in England, Dan learned from the newspaper that he had been dismissed. Mrugowsky had joined the Nazi Party already in 1930. The following year he joined the SS, where his career rapidly advanced. By 1935, he became a full-time SS leader of the Hanover division of the SD, the intelligence agency of the SS and the Nazi Party. In 1933, Mrugowsky became an assistant at the Institute of Hygiene at the University of Halle, where in February 1934 he received a lectureship on human heredity and racial hygiene. 3 years later, he took on a part-time teaching position on this subject at a university. Human heredity and racial hygiene was a pseudoscientific doctrine that promoted the belief in the superiority of the Aryan race and the need to preserve its purity. The regime implemented policies based on this ideology, including forced sterilizations of those deemed genetically inferior and the persecution of people with disabilities. This racial hygiene theory underpinned the Nuremberg laws of 1935, which legally discriminated against Jews and others labeled as racially undesirable. These ideas laid the groundwork for the Holocaust and other genocidal policies during World War II. In 1937, Mrugowsky also became the standard doctor of the Leibstandarte SS Adolf Hitler, an elite military unit of the Waffen-SS, originally formed as Adolf Hitler's personal bodyguard unit. In 1938, Mrugowsky finished his habilitation in the area of hygiene at the University of Berlin. The Second World War began on the 1st of September 1939, when Nazi Germany invaded Poland. In 1940, Mrugowsky took part in the fighting on the Western Front as a troop physician for the SS division Das Reich. The attack against the Soviet Union in 1941 gave rise to many military medical problems, not the least of which was typhus. The disease reached serious proportions in the fall of 1941, and typhus vaccines were so scarce that only doctors, nurses, and other medical personnel in exposed positions could be given inoculations. One of the most important problems with respect to the increased production of typhus vaccines was the effectiveness of the vaccine, which was produced from egg yolk cultures. The effective Weigel vaccine, produced from the intestines of lice, was available, but its manufacture was expensive and complicated. The egg yolk vaccine was relatively simple to produce, but its protective qualities were not regarded as having been sufficiently proved. A conference was organized in December 1941, and Mrugowsky was present as the representative of the Hygiene Institute of the Waffen-SS. It was decided that the typhus vaccine from egg yolks was to be tested on human beings to determine its efficacy. As a result of this decision, an experimental station was established in the Buchenwald concentration camp. This research station in Buchenwald was officially called the Department for Typhus and Virus Research of the Hygiene Institute of the Waffen-SS. Criminal experiments on concentration camp inmates without their consent were carried out in Block 46 to test typhus, yellow fever, smallpox, typhoid, paratyphoid A and B, cholera, and diphtheria vaccines. The suffering of the imprisoned was unimaginable. Emaciated and weakened by hunger, these victims were treated not as human beings, but as expendable subjects in the Nazis' pursuit of scientific progress. Screams echoed as prisoners were injected with deadly diseases, their bodies racked with fever and pain, while the indifferent eyes of SS doctors observed, unmoved by their agony. The typhus experiments in Buchenwald were carried out on a very large scale and resulted in many deaths. In the first experiment, which began on the 6th of January 1942, with a vaccination of 135 inmates, 4 types of vaccines were used. On the 3rd of March 1942, all of the vaccinated and 10 unvaccinated prisoners from a control group were artificially infected with the virulent virus of Rickettsia prowazekii, the causing agent of typhus. 5 people died during this experiment, 3 of them from the control group. A total of 729 inmates were experimented on with typhus in the end, and 154 of them died. There were also therapeutic experiments conducted in the same manner with various drugs. In April and June of 1942, one such experiment resulted in the death of 21 individuals from a total of 39 inmates. For the sole purpose of maintaining a constant source of infected fresh blood, 3 to 5 inmates per month were artificially infected with typhus. Substantially, all of these so-called passage persons died. Their deaths were not properly recorded, as they were not important for the experiment, but the number was estimated to be around 90 to 120. A German surgeon, Erwin Ding Schuler, the man who had the main responsibility for carrying out these experiments in Buchenwald, was getting verbal orders from Mrugowsky till autumn 1943, when he asked for written orders because the camp administration no longer desired to take the responsibility for the selection of the experimental subjects. None of the selected inmates had been condemned to death, except a few Russian prisoners of war who had not been tried or sentenced. Generally, they were in good physical condition. Mrugowsky visited the experimental block in Buchenwald on several occasions. In September 1943, Mrugowsky was appointed director of the Waffen-SS Institute of Hygiene and became a senior hygienist and office chief 3 at the Reich Physician SS and Police. Between 1942 and 1945, some 70 medical research projects were carried out in Nazi concentration camps. These pseudoscientific medical experiments on inmates of concentration camps included high altitude, freezing, malaria, sulfonamide, seawater, sterilization, typhus, poison, epidemic jaundice, and incendiary bomb experiments. From his position, Mrugowsky knew about these experiments, and in many cases, gave direct orders to carry them out. Mrugowsky personally coordinated human experimentation at the Sachsenhausen concentration camp near Berlin. This included testing of typhus vaccines and biological warfare agents including lethal injections and poisoned bullets. Mrugowsky recorded an experiment where 5 Russian prisoners were shot in the thigh with bullets poisoned with aconitine nitrate. 2 of them were shot through the thigh, and as they showed no signs of poisoning, they were eliminated from the experiment and shot to death. The poisoned ammunition remained lodged in the thigh of the 3 others. They suffered greatly, and Mrugowsky made the following notes about their last agonizing moments. The one poisoned man tried in vain to vomit. To achieve this, he stuck 4 fingers of his hand deep into his mouth up to the base joints. Nevertheless, vomiting did not set in. The motor restlessness later grew so strong that the persons reared up, threw themselves down again, rolled their eyes, and made senseless movements with their hands and arms. Death occurred 121, 122, and 129 minutes after receiving the shot. In September 1944, Mrugowsky was made an associate professor in the area of hygiene at the University of Berlin. After the war, justice finally caught up with Mrugowsky when he was arrested by the Allied forces and prosecuted in the Nuremberg Doctors Trial, which ran from the 9th of December 1946 to the 19th of July 1947. Mrugowsky and 22 other defendants were indicted on 4 counts: participation in the common design or conspiracy, war crimes, crimes against humanity, and membership in a criminal organization, the SS. The tribunal rendered its judgment on the 20th of August, finding Joachim Mrugowsky guilty.
Joachim Mrugowsky, Military Tribunal 1 has found and adjudged you guilty of war crimes, crimes against humanity, and membership in an organization declared criminal by the judgment of the International Military Tribunal, as charged under the indictment heretofore filed against you. For your said crimes on which you have been and now stand convicted, Military Tribunal 1 sentences you, Joachim Mrugowsky, to death by hanging, and may God have mercy upon your soul. The officer of the guard will remove the defendant, Mrugowsky.
Joachim Mrugowsky was 42 years old when he was executed on the 2nd of June 1948 in the courtyard of Landsberg prison. Unrepentant to the end, Mrugowski's last words were, "I die as a German officer, sentenced by a brutal enemy, and conscious I never committed the crimes charged against me." There were no tears shed for Joachim Mrugowsky. Thanks for watching the World History Channel. Be sure to like and subscribe, and click the bell notification icon so you don't miss our next episodes. We thank you, and we'll see you next time on the channel.